Greetings Internet! Last year I went on a little trip to Glasgow, and during that trip I visited a distillery, and while at that distillery I bought some whiskey. It wasn't whiskey from that distillery because they were a new distillery and I'd only been there 2 years, and you've got to have aged whiskey at least 3 years before you can actually call it whiskey. But they did instead give us a little lesson in tasting different varieties of whiskey and what to look out for, and showing us the difference between Highlands, Lowlands and Islands. I enjoy a bit of whiskey now and then, but don't really know a lot about it if I'm honest. But of those three during the tasting session, I enjoyed the Highlands one the most. So upon finishing the tour I bought myself a multi-pack of Highlands whiskey of a variety I'd not tried before. These have been sat on the side ever since, but they were never supposed to be a display thing. They were supposed to be something I would try and figure out if I liked. So today we're going to have a little whiskey tasting session. I have my whiskey, I have my glass, and I have my notes on things to pay attention to when tasting whiskey, which I got during Z tour. So I have here 3 whiskies from a company called Tomatin. Not one which I've heard of before, but the softer side of the Highlands is their tagline. Since 1897. High up amongst the smooth rounded peaks of the Monadleith Mountains, there is no room for the rugged and robust. Here, patience, a gentle hand, and a passion for purity rule the day. I am quite sure I pronounced that mountain range wrong, so apologies to anybody from Scotland, or who knows how to talk. So, inside we have 3 whiskies. There is a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and one which is just labelled Legacy. I'm not sure entirely what that means. But I think I'm going to start with the Legacy as go in the order as they were in the box, left to right. I'm going to guess this one is the youngest. It seems to be the lightest in colour. So, Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, Legacy, aged in a bourbon and virgin oak cask, 43% alcohol. So, according to the list, the first thing we're supposed to look at is the colour. Note the shade and the depth of the colour. These indicate the type of casks used for maturation, the freshness of the casks, and the age of the whisky. So as I suspected, this being the lightest, this is also probably the youngest. It's got a light sort of golden colour. Number 2, viscosity. Swirl the whisky around your glass. Natural oils leave a light film from which tears and legs may form. The size and length of these are indication of the weight and mouthfeel of the spirit, and can also indicate its age. Yeah, there are some, but not many. Again, which means this is going to be, I'm guessing, fairly smooth and young. Number 3, the nose. Slowly bring the glass to your nose and inhale gently. Vary the angle of the glass and its distance from your nose to explore the full bouquet. Try to identify some of the component aromas. Now, I've already been able to smell it, well, it's just been sat there on the table, which means I guess it's fairly significant smell on this one. But to be honest, I'm not sure I can pick out any particular types of aromas. It just kind of smells like whiskey. But my guide does have some examples to draw on, till I'm really not sure which one of those I would pick. So let's move on. Number 4 is taste. Take a small sip and hold the whiskey on your tongue to saturate the taste buds. These receptors for sweet, salty, sour, bitter and umami can initially be overwhelmed by the strength of the alcohol. Cheers. But yeah, again, I can't really pick out any particular flavours. It just sort of tastes like whiskey to me. Now, does that mean I'm a bad taster? Possibly. Does that mean that this particular whiskey doesn't actually taste much? Also a possibility that we won't find out until I get onto the next 2. It's not bad, but I feel like I'm mostly just tasting the alcohol here. So, number 5, mouthfeel. Roll the whiskey around in your mouth to appreciate the texture of the spirit. This is crucial to the overall enjoyment of the whiskey. Whiskies can create waxy and silky, or conversely hot, astringent and thin. And yeah, this is definitely that second one. It's hot and thin rather than waxy or silky. And then finally number 6, the finish. The sensory experience is not yet complete. Quality whiskey leaves a lasting impression. It is called its finish. This is the taste left in your mouth after the whiskey has gone, and can be described both in terms of the flavours and the feeling. And in this case, there's not really a lot left, I've got to say, in terms of flavour. It's mostly just the warmth. Now I've got to take a minute to finish this before getting on to the next two. Quick palate cleanser in between. So number 2, this is a 12-year-old whiskey which was aged in a bourbon and sherry casks. And this one has a description. A rich fruity aroma is the prelude to sweet, smooth flavours of ripe apple, pears and a subtle suggestion of nut before the long, lingering, pleasing, oily finish. I guess that defeats the need for my tasting guide because it just told me exactly what I'm going to taste. But let's see if I agree with that, shall we? So, the colour is definitely darker than the first one, but not by much. The viscosity, about the same, I would say. The nose. There's definitely something happening there on more levels compared to the first one, but not anything I am experienced enough to be able to name. So, most importantly, taste. And I guess mouthfeel together. Yeah, that one's a lot more flavourful and a lot less just bam, there's some alcohol. And even afterwards, it's still there in the mouth. Different bits are coming out, which is the finish. This one's longer acting than the first one, much nicer. Clean the glass. There's water. Cleanse the palate. And let's try number 3, which is a 14-year-old from a port cask. And this one is described as rich but balanced aromas of red berries, sweet honey and rich toffee develop into aspects of light fruits and nuts and an abiding finish of smooth fruit salad. Okay, that one sounds a lot more fruity. Let's have a taste. So first we look at the colour. This one's definitely the darkest of the 3, and I would call it, I guess, more of an amber than a gold. Viscosity, there are definitely a lot more legs on this one. The nose. That one... This one actually smells the least, at least to my nose. There's a hint there, there's something that doesn't smell of nothing, but it's definitely the weakest of the 3. And then the taste. Cheers. Yeah, that one's an odd one. The taste isn't initially particularly much, but it's got quite a nice mouthfeel and it lasts a while afterwards. It's still mostly warming and alcohol rather than I'm not picking up any of these berries or fruit salad notes that apparently the bottle says it's got. Now it's entirely possible that my nose and tongue are just incapable of picking those up because I'm not known for being particularly good at those things in the first place. But perhaps it's just that I'm less into the that was a sherry, right? No, port. Perhaps it's just less that I'm less into the port casks rather than the bourbon ones. Because I think if I had to pick out of these 3, I would choose the middle one. The 12-year-old with the bourbon and sherry cask. That was my favourite of these three. But yeah, that was my evening's whiskey tasting. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow.